You know,
With the magic touch.
yeah, we just need.
Are we live now?
We're about to. Oh, are you?
Yes,
Are you our president?
yes, for a couple of hours.
Hola, presidente.
But the same,
Hola, presidente.
hola, oh, yes, hola. Presidente.
Presidente, yes, and presidenta, yeah.
Presidenta. Are we good? We're live? All right, we'll call the meeting recall at 2:37.
And now not the name.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. For today's April 4th already. It'll be Christmas shopping soon.
Oh, no.
John Parker, Vice President Administrative Services, sitting in for President Ricky Shabazz just for today's meeting. We appreciate all of you who have been able to join us in person and those online who are watching and attending via Zoom and YouTube. College Council is the highest level of governance at the college, where we convene the leaders of various constituency groups who will be introduced shortly. College Council also provides an opportunity to present and discuss and propose updates. Should you like to address or present an item, you may bring forth the College Council by emailing the President's office to Janelle Rodriguez or Ricky Shabazz or Aaron Flanagan, or through your respective constituencies. With that, we'll go through roll calls is next, correct? All right, let's go through roll call. We have Mona present, Tilly.
Present.
We're just going first name, not phone. All right, Robbie.
President.
Caesar.
President.
Jay is not present yet.
Represented by.
Presented by Caesar.
Thank you. You did say that just before the meeting. Represented by Caesar. Thank you, Caesar. Suna,
She cannot be here.
not here today. No representative. Dr. Murray, you
Present.
get a formal introduction. I'm sorry, Dr. Massa.
He's out today.
Massa's out as well. Diego, President ASG.
Present.
All right, look at Sharp with the haircut, dude. Appreciate you being here. Marciano,
He's out. He's on campus today.
Marciano's off campus. Sean,
Present.
and Maria Jose.
Present.
Perez.
We have everybody.
Yeah, we have pretty much everyone.
We have
All right, so-
quorum, right?
yes, we do. We do have quorum. First item is approval of the minutes from our meeting. This is the date, March 21st meeting minutes. If you've had the opportunity, there is any discussion regarding the minutes from the April 21st, or sorry, March 21st meeting. And if there is none, do we have a motion to approve the March 21st meeting?
John, this is Rob. I move to approve.
Thank you, Robbie. Do we have a second?
This is Sean, a second.
Sean, thank you very much. Motion carries. No further discussions. If all in favor, please raise your hand. No one's online, so no thumbs up. Present, raise your hand. Any opposed or abstaining? Now motion carries. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes,
Sorry, and
ma'am.
I don't know if it's appropriate time or not. On item number 6, the guided pathways update, presented by Susan Murray. We did not finish that update.
Yeah, it's included as well.
Oh, thank you. Never mind. No. Take it back.
I'm
Pretend I-
sorry, what was that, Janelle?
Yeah, it's noted in the minutes that we're presenting the guided pathways update in future meeting, which happens
Okay.
to be today because
Okay.
it was a short due to time.
Okay, good. So no amendment.
Quick question too, because I know we just, so there was a conversation about these guided pathways among us, and I don't see it reflected in the minutes, even when Diego made a comment and I made a comment. So I'm not sure if that's something that we do typically, but, or not. Just paying attention to the conversation. I don't know if that should be put on the minutes or not.
Well, probably the discussion was had, not verbatim. But you're saying just to add or to note that.
Yeah, that there were a couple of comments. and
Okay,
people,
yeah.
You know,
So if we could amend the minutes accordingly to include that. Thank you very much, guys, for noticing. All right, item number 3, we have accreditation update from Susan and Marco regarding ICER review, item 3A and item 3B, ACCJC annual report and institutional setting standards.
Oh, look at that. That's cool. That's Janelle's picture.
Oh, and the old,
I thought it was part of accreditation.
yeah.
Just so happened.
I will take, I'm taking the first part on the ICER, and this is actually meeting 1 of 2 of the review process, where I'll just go over how to conduct the review. And then I can field any questions, and then Susan will take part 2. Janelle, well, I guess I can start here because we will go back to this. This is the resource website. It's the same as last time, the Google site. Janelle, if you just scroll down the screen, it has everything that you're going to need. I'll be referencing in the PowerPoint. If you want to click the under background information, that the PowerPoint, please. All right, and then scroll down, Janelle, please. So we're going to go over the updated timeline because it changes a little bit, mostly due to the district's timeline when they would like to review our content. So we'll go over some updates there, touch on again what the future looks like next semester and the semester after, how we're going to approve the report, at least the role that this group will play, and then the review process that everyone can contribute with. And then you can scroll down, Janelle. And then one more slide. So this is just, you've seen this before. This is the dates that we are visiting all of the signatory groups. And we've already finished with Classified Senate. We've met the first time with Academic Senate. That'll be next week. And then we'll finish up with the other groups by this end of this month.
Nice.
All right, so we've seen this before as well, but this has a couple of updates to it. The updates are highlighted in yellow. April 26th is when we will send the draft, not the final one, but our final draft of the content for the standards, the standard review. So that will go to the district on April 26th, where the district subcommittee will review it. And then what's the name of the group? Susan, it's not on there, the council.
District Governance
That's
Council.
it, the District Governance Council. So the date, May 9th, is when we will give a short presentation with our sister colleges on our reports. That way they can get some background on what they've read, and they'll be able to communicate back to the board on that. And then in June 15th is the formal board presentation where it's a 2 to 3 minute presentation each college will give, very short. And then that's where they will approve the standard content that the colleges have. So those are the dates there that we have. The rest of them have remained the same. Again, just to note, August 1st, that's when we'll submit to the ACCJC. And to the next slide, please, Joey. This is just review, just as a heads up. Once we submit, October 16th is when our assigned peer review team will meet. They will meet virtually, and they'll create our core inquiries report. We will get that in October. We'll be able to speak to campus about it in November and December. I notice that says DEV, but November, December. And we'll share that with campus and incorporate into the feedback we need to, and also prepare for the visit, which will be February, the week of February 26th, and then the commission action will be in June. So that we've seen before. And this is now approving the report. And so what we're doing is we are, you can skip this. Oh, I'm sorry, no, it's not. Sorry. So we're going around and we have 2 meetings. We're going with the 4 signatory groups. This is one of the final chances for everybody to have an opportunity to look at the draft and provide comments, although it won't be the last opportunity to see it and make comments, but the last formal one. Then at the district level, the board subcommittee on accreditation, that's what we're submitting in the next few weeks. Then the district governance council, and then the chancellor's cabinet will have a chance to look at that. And they're really looking at the content that relates to the district's relationship to the colleges, making sure that it's the same among all the colleges. That's what they're going to be looking at. We are, we do have our editor assigned, Alexander Gardella, for English faculty. So he's come on board in the last several weeks. And he is now beginning to work with Susan and I on formatting the draft now for cohesion, making sure that each section is ordered in the same way and that it has the same voice, grammar, everything like that. He's now going to start that moving forward. And then the next slide, And so for this group, final review and approval, what that looks like is this is really the last kind of formal and comprehensive opportunity for the signatory groups and the community at large to contribute to the report. But again, I emphasize this is not the last time you're going to see the report and be able to make comments on it. Our second meeting, when we return, what the accreditation committee is asking for formal approval and a vote on the draft that you've had an opportunity to read. With the understanding that the formatting and editing of it, like grammar, that sort of thing, will change through the August 1st deadline. And then we do have, when we come back, we'll also describe if there are any major changes that somehow we have to make. We will bring it back to the signatory groups so that they are able to look at it before we make any major changes there. But we'll describe that when we return. And then the next slide, John. All right, and this is the review process. So this will look very similar to the last time. We have the Google resource site. It has the rubric on it that has 4 different categories that you're looking at. And that's what you're going to use as you read each of the standards that you've already been assigned, the same ones that you were assigned before. You will read the rubric, read the standards, and essentially if the analysis answers the rubric, then you can move on. If it doesn't, if it's unclear, that's where we'd like to know. And we make comments and note that somewhere so that we're able to go back and make sure that we can clarify that. So this is just an opportunity, a structured way to give constructive feedback and be able to get the report out to as many people as we can. This is the rubric here. The comments, you're going to have access to a copy, the Word document, a copy of the drafts. And there is a comment feature in Word that you'll be using to make a comment. You just leave your cursor wherever you'd like to make the comment. You'll select the button. I have the instructions for that in the rubric that you guys will open up, and you can just drop a comment in there. That way we'll be able to go back and see it and address it when we need to. But the 4 criteria that we have here are based on what's found in the ACCJC manual, and they're going to help clarify for us. This is what we've asked the writers to do when they're writing. This is what Susan, myself, and Alexander will be looking at when we're reading the drafts, but we're looking for the evidence. Is the evidence that's listed, is it specifically tied to a part of the standard so that when you read it, there is no mistaking that we've chosen this evidence because it's supporting this particular part of the standard. Some standards are very simple, others have multiple components to them. And so we would like the reader to know right away, this was chosen and because it's supporting that. So if that's not clear, we need to know. The second one, does the analysis follow the order in which the evidence was presented? That's a little bit more just a formality. We've decided to make it easy for the reader. When you've mentioned the evidence in the order you mentioned it, we'd like you to talk about it in the analysis in that same way. So it helps people follow along. The third point, in the ACCJC manual that you also have on the Google site, there are a little section under each of the standards called review criteria. And that's what the review teams will use to help them analyze each of our narratives. And so we just asking, if you read the review criteria, does the analysis you're reading in our draft answer it? Is it clear enough that it does address it? Maybe it does address it, but it's a little bit hard because it might be disjointed. Or maybe it doesn't, it's not clear at all. We would just want to know that so we can go back again and clarify that. And then the last part is something that we're going to continue to work on is our highlights are strengths that the college has in the narrative, are they pointed out? Do we highlight any? Or do we make or address any areas of improvement? And so sometimes what you might find is that we do write about something that we do really well, but we don't actually say that. We kind of just describe it. Is there something that we can say, hey, we want to make sure we point out that this is an area that we're proud of, that we'd like to highlight, that we do really well. But on the flip side too, if you're reading the analysis and it's not quite clear, or it looks like we could point out that this is an area of improvement, then we'd like to be able to know that as well. So that we can write about that too, because that's really what the report is asking us to do. It's asking us to kind of just, it's a reflection on how we do our practices, how we approach things. Are there different ways that we can improve, especially when we're reading it? If we don't call it out, we'd like to be able to do that. It could be short-term things, it could be longer-term items. And so that's what we're asking as you go through, just to kind of look at that and help us identify maybe something that the writers miss, because as we all know, if you look at the same thing over and over again, you miss a lot. Just as you're reading the report, you'll notice a few different colors and things. We've kind of made up a code as we've gone along. Red text will indicate district content that was provided us that the colleges were asked to use. In some cases, it'll just, the entire paragraph or section will be red. That just means we're just essentially using everything that the district has. We'd still like you to read it, especially if it's your area, to make sure that it does reflect our relationship with the district, or if there's anything missing there that could clarify. Sometimes you'll see sections of it broken up with writing that the writers added to it. The teal highlights indicate evidence that would need to be checked. We cross-referenced this with Miramar. They shared some of the areas that they thought we needed to check evidence on, especially as it pertains to what the district was sharing. And so if you see that, that just means we're going to go back and make sure that evidence item is either correct based on what was mentioned, or if there's no hyperlink there that you can open up a file, it means we have to go back and make sure that that file is put in there. And then any blue text that you see would just be comments from either Susan and myself or the writers. They wanted to make sure it was in text, that they're giving themselves some notes or things to look forward to. So that's not going to be necessarily included in the final draft. And then these are everything that you're going to need to complete the review. And then can you go down one more? And that's it. That's the final slide. So a lot of information there. But believe it or not, this is probably the simplest way to do it. But we'd love to answer any questions you have. And then I can pull up the website one more time just to scroll through to show you where everything is, and then you'll be all set.
Yeah. And there's a document on that site that shows you which standards you are assigned to. We're not expecting all of you to read through the entire document.
Yes. Yeah.
Can we go back to the timeline or the months where we had Dev with November, right here? So I was just double checking because I had the opportunity this last year to do a visit myself in LA, and I just remember I started my work with them, I think it might have been August, and then September, October, we actually did, and I'm just kind of looking to see, it was a big Zoom virtual. I see it right there with select campus accreditation members in October. It didn't seem, and this is like that first cycle, right, that they did. It didn't seem that the campus really was totally aware of how it was going to happen. So we kind of had like some preliminary, like about 20 minutes of trying to figure out how this was going to work. But I didn't know if we were going to do some kind of a mock before that or not. I don't know on this new process, how that's working.
We should have more details about when that's going to take place and what the agenda will be and who needs to be involved. Probably by Flex Week of fall semester. And so we can share that information then and start preparing. But they told us not yet.
Right.
We were anxious to get some more of those details, and they're not quite ready because they're still finishing up this spring cycle.
Okay. And just because like I'm thinking with our groups here with like faculty, that would we want to make sure we have the right faculty in the room, and wouldn't be like just anybody walk in type of thing. They can, but at the same time, we want to make sure we have classified, SPA, whoever's et cetera on there so that we're not waiting. And I think that did happen in my group. We kind of waited a little extra time for, they had the wrong people available for the group, so they had to go tap the right people. It was the first time doing the cycle, so I think they'll have more information in the future. I just thought about that one as we were, in the past, when we used to do these a different way, we used to run mocks, right? How this would look like and how it would happen. But
Yeah, and we definitely were planning to do that before the site visit, but that's a good suggestion to do that before the virtual meeting as well.
It's just a thought.
Yeah, good idea. Were you done today? I'm gonna jump in. Thank you, Marco. Seems like you've been working on this forever. It's not big. So we don't take for granted the time and effort that goes into it, to organize and corral and write up all of this data. You said 2 to 3 minutes you would have to present?
At the final board meeting,
Okay.
that's what they told us. 2 to 3 each cause.
Wow.
It's a Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
They'll mostly be talking about the process with the
Okay.
trustees. Because the district itself isn't accredited, it's colleges.
Right.
And then we each get to share some highlights.
Yeah, it's gonna be highlights really, but
Okay, good. I'm forward, short, and succinct. Now, how comfortable are we with the, our pace at this point, our progress? In terms of time?
How we doing?
how we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Let me translate for you. John says, how we doing?
I'd say we could always probably be further along than you'd like to, but we have most of the content is there, right? And like I mentioned, there are a few people we're gonna send some sections to be able to read through and double check for us. But at this point, Susan and I are going through the 4 standards and looking at the content, and we are reshaping it and moving it around so it's formatted, at least in the order that we're looking for. And then we send that to Al. Or Alexander, he goes by Al. So now he's gonna go through it. He'll do about 3 different passes, doing something different each time. And so our first deadline is the April 26th to get, we're calling 95% of it essentially done. We have planned it so that we will use all the time that's been given us, at least to turn it in August 1st, and working within what the district is expecting us to provide and what we need to be able to do here to get the signatory groups approval before summer. But we intend to continue to use all the way through August 1st deadline. But we have most of what we need is there. It's a matter of just taking the time now
Sure.
to look through it, make sure it's in the order we want. We have all the pieces we want. It's clear. So I think our approach is good. Other colleges, I think, are sometimes they freeze what they have and we're done. But we're trying to be as flexible as we can. We have to August 1st, so we'd like to be able to.
If I can follow up, I think with John is, like, how can we help, right, on that piece of it? I heard from Elizabeth Norval today, so I know she's working hard on certain pieces. But I also now thinking back of what she texted me this morning is she's still trying to get a hold of things. So how can I help in certain areas or each of the VPs to
Yeah.
say, who do we need to nudge to get the information? If that's something we can help with?
Yeah, the answer is yes. We have a running list of, what we just kind of loosely calling gaps, things that we still need. It will be helpful. We have a list of it already. We went over it in the accreditation committee, till that last meeting, that was that list. What would be great is if, once we've identified those areas, if they can just get to the person that we know knows the most about it, just to kind of help fill that part in, because there are some sections that,
Do you want to send those to the VPs?
Yeah, if you can
Sure.
redistribute.
yeah, we can put, I just need to put it together so it's more organized, and then I can get that out by the end of the week. And then, because Susan and I will add it to our multi-tab now.
Yeah.
Progress report file, to track it, to make sure we're following, because we do have it, it's just, we can make it more digestible for people. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Marco?
You're
Susan?
doing an amazing job.
Yes, you are, sir.
Okay, another component to our accreditation work is our annual report. This is something that we submit every spring to ACCJC, but in a year when we are having, when we are producing an ICER and expecting a review, because our review will happen in February of next year. So this is the last annual report we will submit before the review happens. So it always gets a little bit of extra scrutiny because it is part of what the reviewers are asked to look at. So there's two components to the annual report. There's a data report that shares enrollment information on programs that have been added or discontinued, because they want to make sure that that aligns with where we've submitted notifications or requests for reviewing something to see if it constitutes a substantive change. Most of the time, if we add a new program, it is not a substantive change. It's related in scope or level to curriculum that we already have. We did go through a substantive change this past year in order to get approval for the first baccalaureate degree, because that was a change in degree level. And then the other big piece of the data report is reporting on our institution set standards. And again, this is an expectation from ACCJC that we are monitoring certain types of data about student progress and success, and that we not only look at the data every year, but that we have a threshold for acceptable performance, and we have an aspirational goal. Then there's a second piece of the annual report that is the fiscal report that has a lot of information about revenue and expenditures and just how the college uses money. A lot of it overlaps with IPED's reporting that goes to the Federal Department of Education. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that, John, other than it's just information that is part of our standard reporting, and we just sort of pull some of it out and send it to ACCJC.
No, nothing to add. It's pretty straightforward.
So what I want to do here is share the most recent update on our institution set standards. And in addition to having new data this year, we also went through a process to re-establish our thresholds for expected performance and our aspirational goals. And that process starts with IREC, our Institutional Research and Effectiveness Committee. They work with our research staff and they looked at examples from other colleges. They considered some options and the impact of those. And then they came up with a new proposal. So we've got 6 standards, I think, that we're monitoring. This report, last year's version is on the website. This year's version just got finished, so we will get that up on the website within the next week. And what we're going to do briefly today is look at the charts that kind of give a graphic picture of our institution set standards. So the first one is successful course completion. So this means that not only did a student stay enrolled to the end of the course, they didn't withdraw, but in that course, they received a passing grade, whether it was a letter grade or pass in a pass or pass situation. This we have seen some variability in since the pandemic. We had, and that's the graph on the left, we had a lot of early withdrawals during the first year of the pandemic. Then things really rebounded during the 2020 to 2021 academic year, when we were almost completely online and we had kind of gotten our feet under us with teaching in that environment. This year, things have gotten more variable again, as we have had more of a mix of in-person classes, online classes, some hybrid classes. And we're going to be looking into this. So part of our protocol is that if we see an area that has dropped below that threshold, that we do some investigating and formally make a referral for somebody to determine how we need to proceed in order to follow up and make sure that decline doesn't continue. So we're going to be looking into this to see if there are any patterns. Is it in-person classes? It is online classes? Is it particular programs or related to anything else that we might see? So that's, so course completion is the first one. The second one is annual retention. You can see we had a big outlier in 2018, that bar that went way above the threshold. But then we had a couple of years where we were really concerned about this, and we did have those conversations, and that did align with the development of our retention plan and the work that has been happening around enrollment management. And for the most recent cohort, which is the group that started in fall of 2021, we have seen some recovery. So we are now back up above the threshold, which is good news. Doesn't mean we are not continuing to be focused on retention, but that's moving in the right direction. And I apologize, I forgot to explain that the gray band is sort of the area of expected performance. It's not a single data point because there's going to be some variability. So that looks at our past performance and sort of builds in that variability. And then the green bar at the top is our aspirational goal. The next chart is certificate completion. And it's degree completion, that's on the left, sorry. I can't read what's in front of me if I have my glasses on. Degree completions have been pretty stable. These are associate degrees. We did not see a big drop off during the pandemic. We're right there at the threshold right now. We had 1 year where we exceeded the aspirational goal. So again, this is something that we're monitoring. We are hoping as we work through some transitions in our data systems, hoping to have some better tools in place. This is also part of our guided pathways conversations about students being able to track their own progress based on the program that they've identified in their educational plan. And then certificate completions are on the right. Again, those are a little bit more variable, but after a couple of years, we are back within our expected threshold. The next one is transfer volume. And this is where we have a change to report. And if you put last year's report and this year's report side by side, you will see that we have just moved down on the graph. We were reporting numbers in the 700, 800 range. And what has happened is that we have reset the methodology for this so that it aligns with the SCIF, the Student-Centered Funding Formula. And the biggest change in how we count students that are transferring is that in order to be counted toward the funding formula, a student cannot have a community college enrollment in the year that they transfer. And so the numbers across the board compared to how we reported it internally within the district are lower because we reported the transfer in the year that it happened, regardless of whether a student continued to take a class or two at a community college or not. So this, again, it aligns with the state reporting so that we don't have a difference that we need to explain. But it means, and we reworked the prior year's data so that it's all following the same methodology. But if you hold this chart next to the one in last year's report, everything is going to just be lower on that, those grid lines by a couple hundred students per year. And it's because of that issue of students just, taking one more class, meeting one more requirement, if they have a provisional admission. Whereas the funding formula methodology wants a clean transfer, that students are finished at a community college. So that's something that we are expecting to have more conversation about as a district and as a college, as we, as the state chancellor's office refines their methodology. And, in most cases, it's more helpful to align with that because it just makes it clearer how our outcomes are being counted for the funding formula, and that we're not looking at a different set of numbers. But there will be periodic adjustments, and this year is one of them. So as a result, the research office at City recalculated the data so that that was available so that we could set a new threshold for expected performance and a new aspirational goal under this different methodology that aligns with the state. And then I think we have one chart left, and that is our licensure certification examination results, and that really applies to our nursing program. And as you can see, they have been doing an outstanding job. They have been hitting the aspirational goal. The aspirational goal is at 98%. And we've had the conversation of, does it make sense to raise that any higher? Is it reasonable to expect 100% in every year? And the answer is probably not, because there always is going to be some variability happening just with different groups of students coming through. So this is not this. These are data. So it's not something that we bring forward for approval. It's just as an information item to let you know that this is going to be included in our annual report to ACCJC. And then we have this nice visual format that we use for our campus report, and that will be up on the website shortly. So this has made its way from IREC to city planning and now here to College Council. And if anyone wants to bring this to another meeting or have further discussion, I would be happy to do that, or somebody from the research staff.
I do have one comment.
Yes.
On that last slide, I don't need it, it's okay. When you're talking about nursing and their results are high. I just wanted to, I think it's important because these are metrics that we look for, we're trying to make sure that we're aspiring to. And we've been looking at other alternatives as we look at non-credit programs coming into credit. And I know that we're working on a pathway of the CNA program through CE to be able to have a pathway that they can come here. But it's also been brought up of, hey, we should look at maybe a LVN program and a licensed vocational nursing program. And the problem, I just want to speak out and let people know that, is we wouldn't be able to retain our 98 percentile, because when you bring in a student at a different level like that, they take so much more time, so much more energy. I was talking about any student in that piece of it. So we have to really think about, are we wanting to retain that 98%? Willing to maybe bring that down to about 85% if we bring on a different program, and the cost. I just put that out there because for many people out there, they're not in that piece. They're like, hey, let's just go and do this piece of it, right? Like, let's add this. On the surface, it might sound like it's an easy thing to do, but I've done that before, and it was really a hard piece. I think there's better ways to do it, build that pathway from the CNA to here. CNA to the RN program, with how we're working with CE of saying, getting those students ready at CE, come and become city students, we embrace them, then they can fulfill the RN program here. I think it's just another way, and I just like to throw it out there because there's other programs that you think you can put something in there in the middle, and sometimes does the other opposite and it blows up in your face. So I've just heard it a couple of times from certain people, and I just want to make sure people are aware of the resources that it takes to do that. It's kind of like AB 705 and 1705 type stuff, right? I mean, that we're looking of like, here's the idea, but look at it,
To implement it.
yeah, and how, what it takes to do that,
And the resources.
and the resources, exactly. So it wasn't to go back, it just wanted to bring that up to people.
And even what might be unintended consequences, right?
Yes, absolutely.
What is giving in to be able to. So which one of the lesser evil, isn't that what it's saying in English?
You got it.
Lesser two evils, yeah.
Yeah, that's what you
Listen, I'm learning the idioms.
Or greater good, if you want to look at the.
Yeah.
Positive.
Greater good, thank you, Mona.
I just thought I'd bring it up because the data is there for us to look at, and most of the time it's, thank you, Susan, and all, but it might just go back on the shelf, right? So.
All right, any other questions for Susan? Thank you. Item number 4, COVID-19 state block grant. Number 2, and this is the institutional allocation, the second reading of the budget as proposed. And you should have in your packet, that would be the landscape with the tiny font numbers. That was intentional. It was not, just kidding. We won't need to read through each of the line items, but just do want to highlight by division. Of the $3.7 million, we have $900,000 to each of the divisions, which encompass student services, the president's office, and administrative services. I'm sorry, 3 of the 4, with instructional services receiving $100,000 more, which is $1 million for.
So that's correct.
If that is correct, yes. Well, and that's at 3.7 million total. You can see the line items for each of the respective divisions. You'll note that each one does carry a contingency. Some of which we have used a little bit already. But these, similar to HERS, similar to MSI funds, and similar to state block funds, these become fungible at some point, meaning that for those who are spending at a lesser rate, burn rate, quote unquote, we reserve the right to repurpose or reallocate those funds to our areas of priority need, which is students, technology. We've used it, students, technology, and salaries for HERS as well. Those have been the 3 priorities on which we have repurposed funds. So just wanted to point out that we do have contingencies, and it is just that for those unexpected and unplanned expenses that we so often receive, those requests that we so often receive. Any questions? Now, this is an action item for today, right after the second reading, correct? Okay. And any questions? Look like you have a question.
Yeah, so does ICT have in both instruction and student services? 40 and 40, does this mean they're giving 80,000?
Yes.
Yeah. Or is it different?
Yeah, we went over that, I think, a couple meetings ago that Marciano and I worked together so that we could make sure we gave enough. Well, because there's no funding. So
Right.
Right.
It's great to share. And hopefully, like, CCAP faculty and like coordinator are involved in some of those budget decisions.
Well, once they get them, right now, they haven't got anything.
Well, that's exciting. I'm really glad to see that.
Yeah. And to that point, you can also see some of that in, you'll see it in line item retention efforts. You should see that in both places under student services and in instruction. We kind of work together along that way. Yes, so we really kind of like tried to make sure that we're trying to complement each other.
And a lot of this is really, once we think about the enrollment forum, a lot of this budget as a whole is going on
That's separate.
those efforts.
That's separate.
Oh, that's separate, yeah, okay. So the 800,000 for is separate. Oh,
Right, John, those came from.
Yeah, it is separate, but that doesn't, to your question, mean that we cannot
Sure.
use some of this, but as Tilly mentioned, that it is a separate.
oh, okay, so there's another pocket of.
Yeah, that's another pot.
Another
Correct.
pot.
Oh, wow.
So for
Okay.
example, I can speak to instruction, the first one with retention efforts, and that's 200,000 there. Some of the things that I was looking at in that piece of it, Caesar and I talked about this morning. Remember when we went and took a tour over to John's office and they have the nice wall with the skins on that? I want to do that in instruction to some of the buildings, like an AH building, MS, V building, need to have that. You belong here, that kind of stuff to our students, so they feel like they're welcome. So that's a piece of it, it's not all of it, but that was just like one of the beginning pieces. And then as we started to talk about other retention efforts from the student journey, those are in there. But the ones that we meant about the enrollment form are in a different pot.
Mhm. And I can tell
So we have a
you,
lot,
yes,
basically.
Okay.
from administrative services, we're using some of that for furniture, for common areas to create to create more study spaces or a lounge-like atmosphere for students. Not just sitting at a round table with chairs, but to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
Charge their smart devices and to collaborate, do group projects or just eat or whatever, make it more comfortable and inviting. We're using some of our funds for that, and Tilly has dedicated some of hers, as has Ricky.
That's wonderful.
Can we have hammocks like you and Steve?
Oh.
Have hammocks all over campus.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Now you started something.
That liability.
That may be, yeah, I might have to sign a release form for that.
Before they leave. That would be nice, something like that.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, just a real quick question. For this specific grouping, is there a certain frame of time in which it has to be, funds have to be spent?
Yes, we have 2 years left, so this will be the first year, so we have pretty long.
So that would be summer of 25.
But correct. Not to be confused with all HERFs and MSI, which is this June.
This June.
Correct. Any other questions or discussion input regarding the COVID-19 state block grant number 2?
No, but I think we need to probably meet with you, details on how we can spend our Senate funds. We've heard like overviews, but we need details so that we spend.
Absolutely.
And just to clarify, so in terms of these initiatives and efforts, in terms of strategies and, really not small efforts, which everything counts, but more into the transformational processes, structures that we're reinventing for our campus to function, tied to guided pathways, tied to enrollment management. So part of this money is also focusing on all these efforts that are much bigger than, that some marketing things.
I would say for me, anyone that's coming seeking instructional funds, I'm gonna come back and I think on the the old form, which would be now the new block funding form,
Same form.
same form, different name. Would also request to say, Susan Marie would love this to say, where does this fit in our strategic plan?
That's what I'm
Right.
gonna say. So
See, I knew where you were
That-
coming from,
yes,
so
exactly.
if it
So
doesn't,
it's time to the
Yeah.
if it
strategic
doesn't
plan.
fall on here,
Yes.
then it doesn't belong.
Yeah, to the equity plan, strategic
You know where I'm
plan,
going?
enrollment plan,
Yeah.
Did you like that?
like how is this money tied to this?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if it doesn't flow.
And we'll
it
talk
should.
about this in a minute, but we're starting to see these things kind of merge together in that, we have our strategic priorities. But then for the equity plan now looks much more like our enrollment management plan in terms of structure and how it's organized, and the guided pathways plan will look like that as well, in that it focuses on those milestones in the student journey from entry and enrollment all the way through to completion and transfer.
So it's all aligned. So the
Yes.
efforts are actually aligned for the bigger picture. So it's not for tomorrow, but how it's gonna look like in 2 years, 5 years,
Mhm.
10 years. So that's exciting.
Mhm.
I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, if there's no further questions or discussions, do we have a motion to approve the COVID-19 state block grant 2 as presented.
Motion.
Thank you, Mona. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second. Maria Jose, thank you very much. All in favor? Are there any
Aye.
oppositions or abstentions? Abstentions, yeah. Oppose or abstain?
No.
Motion carries. Thank you guys very much and for all of the work that went in. This looks like high level, but there's a lot of detailed discussion that goes into this. And it's presented as high level, and so we can make it as fungible as possible and have a contingency for those unexpected expenses. So thank you guys very much. Item number 5, Balboa Groups opposing potential safe campground. If you haven't had the opportunity to review the article, 25 plus, I believe, organizations who are opposed to what is the name of this spot where the
Inspiration.
what is it? Inspiration Point, yes, beautiful point. And it's quote unquote underutilized parking spaces, covered parking spaces. With solar panels on top of them. The opposition is that it is pretty much the gateway or the front door to Balboa Park. And doesn't want to be perceived as a threat to a lot of students who come here on field trips, visitors, tourists, and paid staff who work at the park. So it has not been decided. They just went to Inspiration Point to assess if that will be a viable option. They are looking at other options. Councilman Stephen Whitburn is, and that's really the update. That's all we know. What's contained in this article. I don't have any other information above and beyond that. How does that impact city? Well, in various ways, and partner with Balboa Park. And you'll also notice in here that there is a proposal that the encampments cannot be within 2 blocks of a shelter or a public school. That any unhoused people cannot be on public property as well. These have not passed. I can tell you, I've been working with the Balboa Commission and the Friends of Downtown, and they're working along Park Boulevard here to, you guys know, through the facility master planning process, the 14th Street Promenade, I believe it's called, with the terminus point at the campus. It'll wind through the campus. Continue right out here through Russin Park, up Park to Balboa, and kind of create a gateway. We've also been approached by the Friends of Downtown through the, what is it called? Park to Bay Paseo, I believe. And this is for the 2014 San Diego Tijuana. Help me with the last subtitle. Fashion something or other that they're having in 2024. So they're wanting to just really spruce up this area and make it a beacon. So that's why we're seeing a lot of the heavy opposition, not to mention from others who are concerned about
And the parking.
the national. Pardon me?
The parking will close as a result on the street.
As up for that event.
Or, no, I mean, there will be no more, if that happens, there will be no more parking as they change them on the Boulevard area.
In some areas, I'm not sure, because in other areas, they're creating the safe bike zones.
Right.
So I think those areas may be, but you're right, and others that will be losing, will be losing parking spaces on the Park Boulevard. Any questions or input, or has anyone else heard anything regarding this? Just putting it on the radar because we're going to see a lot of discussions. It does impact our campus because we're an urban campus and we're right in the throes of all of this that is happening within campus and our house population. Campus. All right, with that, item number 6. Susan, back to you again.
Yeah.
That's a great meeting.
So this is picking up from the last meeting because we were engaged in a very good discussion and then ran out of time. And so we did not get through all of the presentation. So I think we actually left off on the previous slide, you know, yeah. So the last the thing that led to that extended discussion was the concept of major categories or program clusters and how we are going to proceed with that. And one of the questions that was raised in that conversation is, is this being mandated and what is the timeline? And subsequent to the last college council meeting, Tilly and I had a meeting with Vice Chancellor Topham and some of her staff and representatives from Miramar who were sharing about the process that they have used. And this sort of got merged with some other kinds of information, and we do have more of a timeline. So Tilly, I don't know if you want to share that part of it.
I think the timeline was basically, we need to move by August 5th. Is that
Yeah.
the date we gave ourselves?
Mhm.
August 5th, we need to be moving.
Yeah.
Um,
So because of some other things happening at the system level, they do want all of the colleges to be doing this and at the same time, which is different than the information we got at the beginning of this process, and that's fine. Things
But it was
change.
great to have
But now we-
clarification.
Yes, now we are clear. So we are going to be developing a plan in conjunction with the curriculum committee and academic senate and other faculty to do that hands-on work this summer. We have guided pathways funds to pay people to come in. We want to put some structure on it. We have some starting points in place with the course analysis from our P group and looking at what our sister colleges have done. And then I think the last piece is going to be getting some student input around the terminology and the vocabulary that we're using. We're already, while there is a recognition that a lot of students share enrollment across City and Mesa and Miramar in particular, but also sometimes with neighboring districts, there's some interest in trying to use consistent terminology. But that's not always consistent with the tools that are being used at the state level. And then there are variations within, each of our own colleges so that, our course sequences for a particular associate's degree at City won't look exactly the same as that same degree at Miramar, even though it looks like the same degree, and we have a high degree of shared curriculum within the district. So we want to be thoughtful about how we present these things so that we don't create confusion.
So if I can just add a little bit, the August 5th date came about because we can't do anything right now. Students will be enrolled and starting in first, so we can't touch that one. So we have to get it early enough that it's inputted into the system before the next enrollment big dates, which would be coming in the fall, in case people are asking like, why did that? And we needed to make sure that we have a target date. And then there's another piece, and I don't know if you want to touch it, Susan, or another time, is also the Assembly Bill 928. Okay, thank you.
Know more about
So
it.
928, I did contact Elizabeth Norvell today. She's going to be doing a presentation and probably coming to Academic Senate as well. So this Assembly Bill basically has two pieces of it. One is that all students who do not choose a specific major upon entering to a California Community College will be placed into a ADT. And that's just part of legislation. So it's going to be, you're going to be put into a transfer, a academic degree transfer. I knew you were going to ask that. And the other piece of it is creation of a singular general education pattern for CSU and the UCs. Those are two pieces of that coming. And we can't stop it. We're not slowing it down or anything like that. So all these things are kind of coming all at one time. I'm sorry, this is your presentation. I'm
Nope.
kind of taking over here, but
Go ahead. You are far ahead of me on this part in knowledge.
so this is where really we don't really have a choice
Yeah.
whether you call it pathways or anything else that you want it to be. It's all gonna come together at one time. So I think this is beautiful for us, and I think it's a great time for us to talk with faculty in the summer, who will be here to help in the summer. And I think one of the things, and if Susie don't mind, I have no problem being the lead on this to say, last year we tried with guided pathways to get people to come and work. It didn't happen. So I think we come up with a task force to work group, whatever we call it, that if more people want to come, great, we have funds for that. And if people don't, this is what we're gonna live with. So I'm just being bold enough to put it out there because I think we have to go there. We don't have time to turn around and
Yeah.
say it's gotta come
No
back
more.
6 times. This is
Yeah.
where it is, this is where we go, and I'm putting it out there for you. Is that good?
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Another thing that is happening at the district level that we will be adopting and adapting for city is that when new students complete their application in CCC Apply, they get a series of emails from the state system and then from the district with a lot of information. They're pretty dense emails. Working, telling students what their next steps are and giving them resources. And it's easy to lose track of those emails. And so this led to the idea of, as those students come out of the CCC Apply process, they would be automatically added to a Canvas shell that each college would manage with their information, links to their particular orientation, and all of those resources for new students in one place that they can then go back and refer to. Because we have a big application window, and some people may be filling out their application 2 days before classes start, and some people 2 months or more before classes start. So we want to have a consistent place for students to go. So we had to put out a call through Kim Sweeney a couple of weeks ago about some folks to help us with the initial design of that, to at least have a basic structure ready for this coming fall, and then we can continue to customize it and add to it. So we had 5 faculty who indicated interest, and we'll be following up with those folks. And, again, this is just the first phase. And then Miramar has taken that a step further and has created a separate shell for each of their academic and career pathways. So that there's not just the general information, but that there's also more program-specific information, or at least specific to that particular academic and career pathway. So that's something that could happen in a future phase. Next slide, I think we are ready for now. Integration with enrollment management. This is what I just mentioned a few minutes ago. We have a new guided pathways work plan that is due. It's due at the beginning of June, though they have indicated that they will be flexible with that deadline if we need that flexibility. But it is structured, again, around those milestones for the student journey. There will be activities and metrics around successful enrollment, completion of math and English in the first year, retention across primary terms, completion of a degree or a certificate, and then transfer. So, we're all speaking the same language, so to speak. This aligns with the enrollment management work that we're doing. It aligns with how
Yes.
our equity plan is structured. So we're going to be leveraging all those things, looking at collaboration and looking at shared resources. Now there will be some constraints on sharing resources because, at least as of right now, the spending rules for guided pathways dollars are different than the spending rules for student equity and achievement program dollars, which covers everything that used to be under equity, SSSP, or basic skills. So we'll have to try to braid those and make sure that we're using both sets of resources to the maximum. But with the completion of this work plan, we have another allocation of Guided Pathways dollars that takes us through spring of 2026. Other things that we're working on for students. We're working on a physical welcome to city package. So in addition to the email that may or may not stay at the top of the list, in addition to the Canvas resources that are always going to be accessible, we also wanted to have, you know, something physical. And so we're working with some folks on how to develop that. What would that look like? How can we reach out to new students? And then how can we follow up with them to be sure that they get connected? The program mapper tool, this is something that Miramar is using, and you can find it on their website if you want to take a look. And this tool has evolved. It was developed by Bakersfield and some of the early colleges that were involved in Guided Pathways, and he has evolved quite a bit over time. It used to be something that colleges had to pay quite a bit of money to participate in, but there has been a decision at the state level to put resources behind this so that all colleges can use it without charge. So this gets back to the curriculum conversations about program requirements and course sequencing, and if our gen ed patterns are going to be merging, because all of that is foundational to making this a useful tool.
Yeah.
And not only is there setup involved, but there's going to be ongoing maintenance because degree requirements are continually changing.
Yes.
So this is on the table. Shelley has that the district was heavily involved in helping Miramar set theirs up, and so we can leverage that work that's been done and then make adjustments where our curriculum is different.
Can I jump in real quick? When we met with Miramar, the faculty were on the call with us, and they were really happy to say, if you're thinking when you're getting to the mapping place, they said, we'll come and talk to you and help you guide you into which map, because they've already made the mistakes. They've already gone through that.
Like if you're
So-
thinking a couple of people can sit down in a room and do this and have it work.
I thought that was really great for them to offer.
Absolutely. Yeah, we would love to have them share.
Yeah, and then we are still in conversation with the district because this needs to integrate with Campus Solutions on some kind of tool where students can not only see progress toward their ed plan, but, and this moves up to the next box for faculty and staff, we can get into that ed plan data and use it in aggregate for schedule planning, because that's something we have not been able to access. Another thing that is coming, change that just happened in the last month or so, we are going to be able to reach a new level in our transfer reporting. We have changed levels, I don't know what to call it. The National Student Clearinghouse is the primary entity that provides transfer tracking on an individual student basis. And for a very long time, we did not have access to all of the tools that they offer because they work on the basis of you get back what you put in. And our district was not able to provide all of the data variables that they wanted. So in return, we didn't have access to all of the data variables that they offered. And believe me, we tried paying for it. We tried it, and they, you know, that never happened. So over the past year with new leadership at the district in educational services and in IT, they have made that happen. And so we have submitted our first data set with the new variables. And now we are going to have access to not only what's the receiving institution for our students, but what was their major and did they complete, and a lot of other information. So we are going to be looking this summer on how we can revamp our transfer reporting and make it more program specific. So that's an area where we get a lot of questions. There is also a new tool at the district, and when I'm not talking about these to try to claim credit for them as guided pathways efforts, but these are opportunities that we want to work with and expand on. There is a new tool that the district student services has developed for tracking students who withdraw during a semester.
Yes.
And then new reporting on students who apply but don't register, because historically those students are visible at the district level. They don't make it to our campus database until they're actually enrolled in class. So we're now starting to get access to those folks. And then we still are planning a final workshop with our partners from UCLA. We're looking at whether we can possibly integrate that into the enrollment management follow-up that's happening on April 21st. That got delayed because of the grad student strike in the UC system earlier this year, and our partners were not available. Grad students were not available, and our faculty, our research contact, who was a dean, had to take on other responsibilities. But we want to bring that back, kind of get closure to that overall project that started with those student interviews almost 2 years ago, and tie that to our enrollment management work. One of the last things, collaborative support teams. We really want to revive that model again. And the next slide just kind of gives you a little refresher on what that looks like. And we will be looking at setting up some trainings this summer. There is a funding stream that is coming through financial aid that will be possible to use to allow a student to participate as a member of a collaborative support team and have specific responsibilities related to data and research, which is a requirement of this funding, and be paid to do so. So we're looking at relaunching those in the fall, but we're still working with this basic structure that, you know, that this isn't a cohort model, though it could be adapted if we have a cohort like Promise.
That's what I'm saying.
But when we don't, we can still, we can make this work. And that student services has been willing to support counseling faculty to have time within load to participate in this process. The very last slide is an outline of our work plan. I've already talked about how this aligns with the equity plan and the other things that we are doing on campus. We'll be bringing that this in more detail to student journey, either this Friday or next Friday, we hope. And you know, we're going to try to work, though this plan does not have any formal sign-offs when it's submitted in the NOVA system. We do want to be open about the process, share information, and get input from Academic Senate, work hand in hand with the Guided Pathways Committee and the Student Journey Committee, which had a lot of participation in the equity plan, and kind of take that same model for getting this developed. And still try to get as much of it completed as possible before the end of the semester. So that was the rest of the Guided Pathways update for now.
All right. With that, this is your show, I feel like today. I know we have some action items. I just want to be mindful of the time. It's we'll have to pivot to the end.
I feel like dancing.
There's a lot
Happy you
going on.
made me.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Wow.
Great.
Okay, just really quickly for item 7, I know that there's listed actions, there was a bit of confusion when I shared the agenda. So for item 7, I'll let Susan kind of explain it a little bit more, but it's just essentially outlining the upcoming agenda items for the next few college council meetings. So we kind of have a general idea of which presentations are coming.
So taxes for that meeting.
Actions of those meetings listed in the letter items.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And then on the last page, there's a draft agenda for the remaining meetings from June to December of 2023. Wow. And the meeting, sorry, I kind of took.
Oh, no,
but
This is fine.
No, you go, Janelle.
This is a draft. I forgot to put the background as a draft. But the meetings in August, Lex week are accounted for, and as well as the first week of school, we don't have those meetings. And then there are also 2 meetings highlighted in November, December that will likely get canceled because of holidays. So I just wanted to point those out, but
So in the summer, June and July,
yes,
I just want to make sure we are aware so that you make sure that all faculty
Yeah.
and
Yes.
our students are better. Informed. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Yes, that's important.
again, all of these dates are tentative as, and if you look at item or 7D, item 2 under 7D, we will be voting during that last meeting we have in May to continue college council during this.
Thank you. But it gives people a chance now to take a look at their calendar before you
Yeah, start
make all
planning.
those arrangements to fly
Yes,
away.
yes, please.
And also too, once those dates are established, well, our office will be sure that we send out calendar invitations, so those dates are held on your calendars as well.
That's really helpful.
We're preparing like the semester before.
Yeah, so,
I
you know,
know that.
Janella just basically took us through it, but this last agenda item, I don't really know why my name got associated with it, other than
It says
I
planning.
suggested, yeah. Is, you know, just to adopt the practice at the end of each meeting to think about where we're going from here.
Yeah.
And that, you know, we know what's coming up in terms of presentations, in terms of votes. And that, you know, when there's space, like right now, there's only one thing on May 2nd. So maybe that's an opportunity if there's something that someone wants to bring forward to add to that agenda. And then there's time to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Susan.
thank you.
Nelly for organizing all this.
Thank you,
Yes.
Janelle, as well. Any updates from members of the council?
Not an update, well, I just remember the student admission forum is coming up on April 20th from 7 PM to 8:30 PM. And speaking of April 20th, is there supposed to be an open house on that day as well?
Thank you for that.
Great segue.
Yes, we have an open house April 20th from 9 to 1. That's also including the student research symposium and also the environmental environmental justice summit. And everything's pretty much happening at the AHBT quad, so hopefully everyone can attend.
Thank you for the reminder.
Yes, and
Thank you.
Diego's announcement will be coming out in the DL today.
Perfect.
Robbie,
Also, this Thursday, there's going to be the first of the Career Pathways in Higher Education series. This is a virtual meeting, Zoom meetings. We're featuring this time the transition from classified to professoriate or to faculty, if you will.
Oh, very cool.
And we'll have our own Ebony Tyree as one presenter, and another person is Carla Rosilli. I hope I'm not butchering her name. But Carla is actually the PD coordinator at continuing education.
Oh, very nice.
So both have gone through the experience of being ready and being able to take advantage of the opportunity of becoming a faculty member. That's this Thursday.
Thank you.
Online from 2:30 to 3:30. There's a Zoom flyer. There's a flyer out about the Zoom. Not a Zoom flyer.
I'd like to see that.
That's exciting, yeah.
I have an announcement, April 13th, which is next week, Thursday, from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. We're gonna be celebrating Classified Appreciation Day. We try to have one of these once a semester, it's just a day to show recognition for classified professionals. It's gonna be held here in D121B. We're having mental health activities for classified, but it's open to the campus. We invite you to come on in and show some recognition for the classified professionals on campus. And it's a come and go, so it's between 10 to 1, April 13th.
Thank you.
And from the Academic Senate, we actually, the plenary is coming up, which is also at the end of this month. And it's actually, I just noticed the 20th, the 21st and the 22nd. So man, it's a popular day, that April 20th. So it's where faculty votes on resolutions with the ASCCC, the Academic Senate of California Community Colleges, that go to the state level. So it's a very, very important event, and we have it once a semester. So this one is coming up, and almost the entire executive team of City College is going to be there representing.
Where's it?
And this one is Long Beach, I think it's this time. Usually it's in Sacramento, but this time I'm driving. So, yes.
You say.
All right, I think that's it for the updates. Thank you all. Great seeing you, and we will adjourn